In a small room at the local community center in Chicago, Anna and Mark carry the heavy weight of 2 years spent desperately searching for their missing daughter, Emily. The walls seem to echo with the unspoken tension between them. They had never wanted to leave Boston, their home, but now they find themselves in this vast, unfamiliar city, clinging to the faint hope brought by an anonymous phone call. The message had been simple. A woman's voice saying Emily had last been seen somewhere near here. It was not much, but it was enough for them to pack whatever they could and set out, nerves worn thin, hearts pounding with dread and anticipation. Mark gets ready to meet with the Chicago police, rehearsing what he will say in his mind, replaying the events leading up to the day Emily vanished. He checks his phone for missed calls or updates, running his fingers through his hair like maybe the gesture will loosen the knot of worry in his chest. Anna, meanwhile, can't sit still. She paces the cramped lobby, scrolling through a local, missing persons app on her phone, hoping for a clue, a sighting, a new post, anything that might link them to Emily. Every time she sees a girl with similar features pop up on the app, hope and fear surge within her, drawing her closer to despair when it always amounts to nothing. Their grief sits heavily between them. Anna's faith, strained but undeniably present, alternates rapidly between guilt, haunted by all the ways she wonders if she failed Emily, and moments of quiet comfort, found in brief flashes of optimism. She wants to believe they will find their daughter, that somewhere in this noisy, bright city, the right window will open and they will glimpse her. But Mark is not so certain anymore. The years have chipped away at his confidence. He keeps these doubts mostly to himself, but they come out in the smallest ways. A sigh, the set of his shoulders, the way he sometimes avoids Anna's gaze. Each little action becomes a quiet battle. Mark pushed towards giving up, Anna stubbornly pushing back, both of them caught in a tug-of-war between holding on and letting go, unwilling to say the words out loud, but each feeling them press closer. Every day, Anna kept scrolling through the missing persons app, her thumb moving anxiously over the phone screen. A new post caught her eye, a blurry photo taken just outside Millennium Park in downtown Chicago. The picture showed a little girl wearing a pink jacket, walking beside an older man. The girl's coat looked strikingly familiar, not just any pinking, but the exact shade Anna remembered picking out with Emily on a chilly afternoon 3 winters ago. It was the last coat she bought her daughter, one Emily had insisted on wearing everywhere because of the soft lining and the rabbit patch. On the left sleeve, Anna's breath caught in her throat, and she felt her heart pound out a wild rhythm. Hope and panic tangled together as she zoomed in on the picture, searching for that patch. The detail was blurry, but Anna was convinced it had to be Emily's coat. She held the phone out to Mark as he came back from his call with the police. "Look," she said, her voice trembling. "I think this is her jacket at least. See the sleeve?" Mark took the phone and looked, squinting at the screen. He gave it back after a moment, shaking his head. "Anna, we've seen jackets like that before. It could be anyone. We have to be careful about this." Frustration bubbled up in Anna. Mark didn't understand how much this jacket meant, how sharp her memory was when it came to Emily. To Anna, every small clue felt huge, like the universe was giving her hints to follow. Mark saw it differently. He had started worrying that Anna's devotion to the smallest hints was pulling them off track. "We can't jump every time you see a pink coat. We have to think, maybe try to get more facts from the police or someone who actually saw her face," he said gently, trying to steady her. Anna drew back, stung. "So what? We just ignore it? What if this is the thing that matters, and we let it go?" Their voices stayed low, but the tension filled the little room. Anna's certainty, her fierce belief that this clue was important, clashed with Mark's need to stay logical and avoid more heartbreak. The difference between hope and reason grew wider, threatening to crack open every old wound between them. Anna clung to the photo, unwilling to let it be another dead end, while Mark quietly wondered how much longer either of them could stand going in circles like this. With the photo still open on her phone, Anna could not shake the feeling that their next move had to be to Millennium Park, where the picture was taken. Mark tried reminding her that they had already agreed to meet folks from the local Missing Children Network at the Family Services office that afternoon, where the police had said they'd share whatever new information they had. Anna nodded along, but her heart just was not in it. She kept turning the image of the pink coat over in her mind, imagining a dozen different ways it could still be Emily. The sky over Chicago was gray as they climbed into their rental car. Mark sighed, pressing his palms to the steering wheel for a moment. "Please, Anna, let's just do things in order for once," he said, a tired edge in his voice. She did not reply right away, but as they drove, she caught sight of the park's famous Cloud Gate sculpture in the distance, the area where the photo had been snapped. Without warning, Anna asked him to pull over near a small chapel tucked between office buildings, right at the southern edge of the park. "I need to check, Mark. I just need to be sure," she insisted, already fumbling for the door handle. Mark groaned, rubbing his eyes. "We can't keep veering off every time you get a feeling. That's how we end up disappointed." But Anna was already out of the car. He watched her walk away, his shoulders slumping, exhaustion and worry pressing down on him. Anna hurried toward the chapel. She barely noticed the mix of tourists and locals roaming the city sidewalks or the chilly wind that made her shiver. Inside, the chapel was quiet and nearly empty, its old wooden pews a world away from busy Michigan Avenue. Anna sat for a moment, folding her hands. She whispered a quick prayer, not even sure if she believed anyone was listening, then tried to focus on the details, the colors, the faces passing outside, the echo of her own steps as she circled the building afterward, checking any corners where a child and a man might have been spotted. It made sense to her, combining hope and practical searching, trusting that this odd urge to look here might mean something, even if Mark thought it did not. For Anna, every glimmer of faith and every clue had to count for something, or else all the heartbreak would have no meaning at all. Inside the chapel, Anna was surprised to find it warmer than she expected, with quiet music playing from somewhere. Near the altar, she stood holding her phone in both hands, trying to steady her breath. Just as she was about to leave, a friendly-looking man came out from a side office, his name tag reading David. He walked over, asking softly if she was lost or needed help. Anna hesitated for a moment, then explained that she was searching for her daughter and showed him the blurry images from the app, the pink jacket, the little girl beside the man. David leaned in, studying the pictures, eyebrows drawn together. "I'm sorry," he finally said, with a careful tone that was neither hopeful nor dismissive. "I don't recognize them, but children come through here all the time with their families. Are you sure these photos are from yesterday?" Anna answered that they were, and that was why she felt she had to check. David said he would ask around and keep his eyes open, but there was something in his voice, maybe doubt, maybe just caution, that left Anna even more anxious than before. Then, as Anna was putting her phone back into her pocket, the heavy door creaked and two people walked in, wearing simple black shirts and silver crosses on chains. One of them was a tall woman in her 40s with short brown hair, and something about her stopped Anna in her tracks. It was Sister Margaret, a face Anna never thought she would see again outside of Boston. Sister Margaret had led youth retreats back at their old church, always offering comforting words in tough times. For Anna, the past and present collided in that moment, sending a jolt of recognition and confusion through her. Sister Margaret noticed Anna's stare and smiled politely. But Anna could not help but wonder what she was doing here, hundreds of miles away from home. Suddenly, all the memories of Boston flooded in. The church events, the small acts of kindness, even the last time Anna had confided in her about Emily's struggles at home. Anna's relief at seeing a familiar face was quickly replaced by uncertainty. What did it mean that Sister Margaret was here in Chicago at this very chapel? The coincidence seemed too strange, and Anna's hope now tangled with question after question. Every answer only made the search feel more complicated, the shadows of doubt in Anna's mind growing larger with every passing minute. Anna cleared her throat, pushing past the surprise that came with seeing Sister Margaret in such an unexpected place. Her mind whirled as she pieced together memories. She clearly remembered Sister Margaret visiting their church in Boston not long before Emily disappeared. It had struck Anna back then as odd that someone so friendly yet always slightly reserved had appeared during a tough time for their family. Now, standing face to face again, Anna felt a tension that was hard to name. Sister Margaret looked at Anna a bit blankly at first. Then, after a few hints, Anna mentioning the church on Tremont Street and the support groups she'd helped run, recognition flickered in her eyes. Anna, of course, it's been years, hasn't it? She spoke with that same polite warmth Anna remembered, but now there was a pause to her words, a hesitation like she was catching up in her mind a little too slowly. The way she smiled felt rehearsed, not like the genuine comfort Anna used to feel at home. Trying to steady herself, Anna reached into her bag and pulled out a stack of missing posters, holding one out to Sister Margaret. "You might have seen this, maybe you remember her, my daughter Emily." As she handed over the paper, Anna's own hands shook a bit. The photo on the poster was the same bright girl in the pink jacket, the one Anna could never let herself forget. Sister Margaret's reaction was immediate, but peculiar. For a split second, worry flashed over her face, and she glanced quickly down and away. She hugged Anna, and the embrace lasted a beat longer than Anna expected. When she pulled away, Anna caught sight of something, a small photo sticking out of Sister Margaret's pocket. The edge looked just like one of the missing person flyers, but the photo seemed different, like someone had folded it and carried it around. Anna's stomach turned. She tried to act casual. "Have you heard anything? Maybe from kids or families who came through here?" she asked, trying to sound calm. Sister Margaret hesitated, glancing at the photo in her pocket before answering. "We see a lot of faces here, Anna. I wish I could say yes." That moment, the strange look in Sister Margaret's eyes, the folded photo she tried to hide, made Anna's heart sink and suspicion quietly bloom. This meeting, which should have brought comfort, instead left Anna with more questions than ever, unsure where trust should begin or end. Stepping out of the chapel, Anna breathed in the brisk Chicago air, trying to clear her head. As she walked toward the street, she noticed Sister Margaret unlocking a silver sedan parked along the curb. Anna would have dismissed it as unimportant, except that as Sister Margaret opened the car door, a wave of fragrance drifted toward her, sweet and unmistakable, immediately sending Anna back to Emily's old bedroom. It was the same perfume Emily used to spritz before school every morning, a specific brand Anna had given her for her last birthday. Of all the places for that scent to hit her, it was here, just after meeting Sister Margaret again. For a moment, the world seemed to narrow to just the faint smell and a flood of memories. Mark came up from behind, holding out the car keys. He saw the look on Anna's face and asked if she was all right. She shook her head, still dazed. "Mark, that perfume. It's Emily's. I know it sounds crazy, but it was coming from Sister Margaret's car." Mark looked tired, running both hands through his hair, not quite able to hide his skepticism. "Anna, it's just a smell. Lots of people wear perfume. You said yourself it's a popular brand. This isn't proof. We can't start chasing ghosts every time you feel something familiar. He was quiet for a second, then softer. We already have so little to go on. Let's not add more wild goose chases. But Anna could not let it go. The mixture of suspicion from the chapel, the hidden photo, and now this. The chances seemed too slim for it all to be nothing. Fear warred with hope inside her, making her heart pound. Anna argued silently with herself. What if it's just her desperation twisting the ordinary into what she wanted to find? Still, her instincts screamed that she could not ignore this string of hints. So instead of getting in their own car, Anna told Mark to wait a minute, acting as if she had forgotten something inside. Then, keeping her distance, she watched as Sister Margaret finished buckling herself in and pulled away slowly, heading south down Michigan Avenue. Anna hurried back to their vehicle and convinced Mark, with little explanation, that they needed to follow. For Anna, even the weakest thread was worth chasing down if it meant the slightest chance of finding Emily. With that, she pulled onto the street, the silver sedan just a few car lengths ahead, and focused only on where this trail might lead, because at this point, intuition felt sturdier than anything else. Anna trailed Sister Margaret's silver sedan for nearly 20 minutes, doing her best to keep a couple of cars between them so it would not look obvious. Mark muttered about using precious time on another wild lead, but went along, glancing over at Anna now and again to check her resolve. They passed through several busy intersections and long stretches of tree-lined streets, finally stopping in a quiet residential neighborhood dotted with big old houses. Sister Margaret turned into the gravel driveway of a sprawling white home with a big porch and wide front steps. A wooden sign out front read, "Rooms for rent," swinging gently in the light breeze. From their parked car down the street, Anna and Mark watched as Sister Margaret got out, opened her trunk, and pulled out a small suitcase. Not long after, a blonde little girl in a red sweater tumbled out the front door, calling for her mum. A woman followed, clutching another bag and waving as Sister Margaret approached. The scene was ordinary, just a family greeting one another, getting ready for what looked like a trip. Anna's eyes narrowed, hopeful, but scared to hope too much. They stayed there, longer than they probably should have, watching every movement. Anna held her breath when she saw the girl's hair shimmer in the sunlight. She thought, just for a heartbeat, that perhaps Emily might have dyed her hair again, that maybe she would turn and wave in a way that could not be mistaken. But as the girl skipped down the walkway, laughing and chattering with the woman, Anna's heart sank. The girl was a little taller, and the way she hugged her mother was too comfortable, too practiced. Mark leaned over, peering carefully. "That's not Emily," he said quietly. Anna nodded slowly, the ache inside her growing. She could not deny it any longer. Everything about this family looked too familiar, too grounded. The woman shared features with Sister Margaret, and the blonde girl could have been her daughter or niece. Anna's mind ran through the facts: hair color, height, even the suitcase. That looked well-traveled. It did not match anything about Emily's life. Sitting in their car a moment longer, Anna felt the hope drain away, replaced by a sharp sting of embarrassment and regret. They had chased yet another trail, only to end at a dead end. Mark reached over quietly, resting his hand over hers as Anna wiped away a single tear, letting the heaviness settle quietly between them. Feeling defeated, Anna and Mark started the car and drove away from the rental house, letting silence settle between them. The city's hum felt heavier now, as if even the passing cars and crowded sidewalks knew they had gotten it wrong again. Neither of them spoke much as they made their way back toward the Family Services office, where the Missing Children Network had promised to meet them to hear their story and gather whatever updates they might have. Anna stared out at the tall office buildings sliding by, her thoughts tumbling in cycles of doubt and regret. She could feel the weight of her mistake, that deep, awful guilt of leading them on yet another wild chase. At every stoplight, she saw sympathetic faces, or sometimes the wary glances of strangers when she adjusted a stack of missing posters. In her lap, Mark tried to reach over and squeeze her hand, offering a small comfort. He assured her in a tired voice that anyone in her situation would have done the same thing, that it was better to check out every lead rather than wonder later if she missed something important. But Anna could see the resignation in his eyes, the way his hope sagged a little bit more after every disappointment. Inside herself, though, Anna felt something unsettled. The facts in front of her screamed that Emily was not at the rental house, that Sister Margaret was just passing through, just living her life. Yet Anna's heart would not let go of the tiny unease lodged beneath all those explanations. Maybe it was the way everything had lined up too neatly, or maybe it was simply that void Emily had left, wide and aching, impossible to ignore. The world wanted her to move on. That much was clear. People's well-meaning looks, the stack of pamphlets in the waiting room, even Mark's gentle reminders all seemed to whisper that it was time to accept what she could not change. But Anna refused to turn away from that void, to fill it with empty reassurances or the cold comfort of statistics. She held tight to hope, even when it hurt. Logic, facts, and the opinions of everyone else did not change how much she missed her daughter. As they pulled into the parking lot and gathered their things, Anna straightened her shoulders, forcing back tears. Maybe tomorrow would offer new answers, or maybe just another long, painful day of searching. Either way, she would not let go. By the time Anna and Mark reached the family services office, a grey stone building tucked between a pharmacy and a busy coffee shop, late afternoon sunlight was already stretching long shadows across the sidewalk. They hurried inside, pushing through the heavy glass doors, only to find that most of the waiting area was empty. The receptionist at the desk checked their names and explained that Detective O'Brien, who was leading their case, had already left for the day, right on schedule. He waited as long as he could, she said gently, but there was another emergency. He'll be in first thing tomorrow. Anna felt the fresh sting of disappointment. They had missed their opportunity for a real update because they had chosen to chase down a hope that led nowhere. Mark's jaw tightened as they left the counter, heading for the worn couches by the window. If we hadn't gone after every small hint, we would have been here on time, he said, trying to keep his voice low but unable to hide the bitterness. Anna bristled at his words, hearing in her mind all the arguments they had already had, about hunches, about wasting time, about who was really helping and who was just making things harder. He told her he understood why she kept getting distracted by every lead, but it was clear he was losing patience. Unable to handle the frustration, his or her own, Anna grabbed her bag and said she needed some air. She slipped out of the building without looking back, letting the door clatter shut. The steady rhythm of footsteps on the sidewalk and the distant rumble of a train offered some relief from the tension. Chicago's tall buildings reached up into the sky, their sharp lines and cold beauty making Anna feel small but oddly protected. She found herself wandering toward the river, standing at a quiet spot behind a row of planters. Here, surrounded by stone and steel, she finally let herself breathe. In this moment, her isolation was more than just stepping away from Mark and the silent waiting room. Anna's mind drifted, reviewing all that had happened, every memory, every shred of hope, every hard conversation until now. It was a retreat inside, too, a space to rebuild the story she told herself. Even as doubt threatened the core of her faith in herself, in her family, in the possibility of finding Emily, Anna tried to stitch together enough hope to keep moving. The city felt endless, but Anna stood quietly, willing herself not to sink beneath that heaviness. Anna moved away from the noisy intersection, letting her feet carry her through the crowded sidewalks of the loop. The glare of late sunshine reflected off the windows of the office towers, catching on people's faces as they hurried by with briefcases, shopping bags, and coffee cups. She walked slowly, barely noticing the blended sounds of horns, laughter, and distant sirens. Her attention was fixed on her phone, thumb scrolling through the gallery of images she had saved from the Find My Family app over the past few months. Anna could not help it. She went back over every photo she had of Emily, every screenshot from the support groups, even the faces she had marked as possible sightings. She zoomed in, looking at blurry shapes in the background, the angles of a stranger's jaw, a reflection in a store's window, or the corner of a familiar backpack. Her chest tightened, thinking about how many times she had convinced herself that she was one clue away, even after today's letdown. But she could not stop. Some stubborn spark in her insisted that the answer was waiting, so near, just out of sight. Frustrated with herself but unable to let go, Anna hurried to a quieter bench along the main plaza, where she sent a message to her oldest friend, Samantha. Samantha had been with her through thick and thin, someone who never judged her for reaching out, no matter how small or strange the request. Anna typed quickly, asking if Samantha could do a little digging into Sister Margaret's history. Maybe look into people who had worked with her or even past visitors to her events. Anna knew Samantha still worked with an alumni network from their university. Between that and her wicked knack for getting information online, she was the perfect person to ask for discreet help. Even as Anna felt the sting of repeating old patterns, going back down familiar rabbit holes, calling in old favors, she also felt a sliver of hope. She'd heard so many times that the line between persistence and obsession was thin, and maybe she was crossing it, but she did not care. To Anna, the only thing that mattered was the ending, finding Emily, or at least knowing she had tried every possible door. She waited anxiously for Samantha's reply, eyes bouncing between her phone screen and the steady stream of strangers moving all around her, each step filling her with cautious determination. Anna, still glued to her phone, found herself drifting along the wide boulevard near the family services office. She lost track of time, scrolling through messages from Samantha and backtracking on old posts, her mind whirring with half-formed theories. Suddenly, something about a building across the street caught her attention. It was a brick structure with an old wooden sign out front that read St. Agnes Community Center. The place had a welcoming look, but there was a cross over the door and posters advertising food drives and support groups. She realized it was a sort of outreach shelter run by local nuns, exactly the kind of spot where someone might go unnoticed or where someone like Sister Margaret might volunteer. Anna hesitated at the curb, telling herself it was just curiosity, maybe just a way to kill time until Detective O'Brien came in the morning. But deep down, she wanted to feel useful again, to rewrite the mounting sense of helplessness. It was better to try something new than to sit and stew with her regrets. With cautious steps, she crossed the street, keeping her eyes out for anything unusual. As she got closer, Anna's heart leapt into her throat. Parked right in the small lot next to the center was a blue sedan that looked almost identical to the one Sister Margaret had been driving earlier. She froze, breath held, wondering if this really was just coincidence. Before she could decide what to do, she spotted the woman from the rental house, the same one who had greeted the blonde girl, getting out of the car, holding the child's hand. The little girl's hair flashed gold in the afternoon sun, and the pair were laughing together as they made their way inside. Anna ducked behind a wide tree on the sidewalk, heart pounding so loud she was sure someone would hear it. She tried not to be seen, straining to pick up bits of conversation or spot faces through the glass doors. It felt a little ridiculous, crouching by herself. But Anna could not let herself be noticed and risk ruining a real lead. So she waited, nerves coiling tight in her stomach, watching as the minutes stretched on. Every movement near the door made her hold her breath. The city's noise faded, and all that mattered was what happened next. For Anna, this became another test of patience, every second promising another chance, the tension mounting, unsure where persistence would finally lead her. From her spot behind the tree, Anna kept her eyes fixed on the community center's door. She watched as the woman disappeared inside with the small blonde girl, telling herself that she needed to wait, that this might be nothing, just a repetition of her earlier mistake. Yet, as the minutes passed, her mind spun with what-ifs and the nervous energy that comes from hope you do not want to name out loud. After what felt like an hour, but was probably only 15 minutes, the door swung open again. This time, the woman stepped out, followed by a handful of children, each carrying a suitcase or backpack. Anna tried to see their faces, counting softly under her breath. The group didn't pay any attention to the world beyond their own chatter and the gentle instructions from the woman, who was clearly in charge. They walked toward the blue sedan, some dragging their feet, others clutching stuffed animals or water bottles. Anna's heart slammed in her chest as she stared at the last girl in line. Her hair was longer and darker than before, but Anna could not mistake the way she walked, the small tilt of her head, the familiar shape of her shoulders. It was Emily. For a second, Anna thought she might faint. Everything else, the busy cars, the sound of someone laughing behind her, the smell of city exhaust, faded away. There was only her daughter moving with the group, a little thinner but unmistakably herself. The world seemed to go silent around Anna, the old hurts and memories pushing up all at once. 2 years of waiting, of second-guessing, of trying to explain how a family keeps breaking and healing at the same time. All of it welled up in her throat. She almost stumbled out from behind the tree right then, desperate just to run and gather Emily into her arms. But years of false alarms and bitter hope made her hesitate for just a breath. Then panic cut through her awe. What if she waited too long and lost her again? Anna's hands shook as she pulled out her phone, dialing Mark. Her voice cracked with urgency. She tried to explain, but the words tumbled after each other, sharp and breathless. "You need to come right now," she whispered, glancing at the group, afraid to look away. "I found Emily. I know it's her. Please hurry." Anna did not care about anything else, not how strange she looked, not the risk of being seen. She knew somehow that letting this chance slip would never be forgiven. Driven by something wild and unwavering, she readied herself to act, fear and hope wrestling inside her with every heartbeat. As soon as Anna ended the call with Mark, she bolted from her hiding place. Without thinking about who might be watching or what might happen next, she sprinted across the parking lot toward the blue sedan where the woman was trying to get the kids strapped in. Anna's voice cracked as she shouted, "Emily! Emily!" The name left her lips louder than she expected, echoing off the brick walls and turning more than a few heads nearby. For a split second, everything stopped. The woman froze, halfway through buckling a seatbelt, her eyes wide with shock. The children paused, confused by the sudden commotion. Anna's eyes locked on Emily, who turned, startled at the sound of her name. For a moment, Anna wondered if she would recognize her own daughter, if Emily would recognize her. But then, the girl's expression changed. First, uncertain, and then stunned, like a part of her memory had just been snapped awake. "Mom," Emily said, her voice small but steady. A flood of emotion crashed through Anna, and she gathered her daughter into her arms, shaking and sobbing, barely able to believe this was real. Emily clung to her, trembling. Years of waiting and frustration melted into that embrace, their tears mingling without words. Anna ran her hands along Emily's back and hair, not caring how many people might be watching or that she was crying openly in a public parking lot. It was enough just to hold her, enough to hear Emily's breath and know it was really her, alive and solid and right here. Everything else fell away, the angry woman, the nervous children, the blue sedan, until Anna heard running footsteps. She turned to see Mark, cheeks flushed from running, breathless and stunned as he took in the scene. His wife hugging their missing daughter, the impossible reunion happening right in front of him. Mark slowed down, eyes shining with tears, and then he was there, folding both Anna and Emily into his arms. He did not care about the warnings he had rehearsed 1,000 times in his mind, nor about the mistakes and doubts he had carried so long. In that moment, none of it mattered. All three held on tight, afraid to loosen their grip, afraid it would all dissolve if they let go. For just a minute, the chaos of the city faded, and strangers looked on quietly, bearing witness to a little miracle right there on a busy Chicago street. As Anna, Mark, and Emily held on to each other in the parking lot, the scene drew the attention of more bystanders. It was not long before someone, maybe the nervous community center staff or a passerby, called the police. Within minutes, 2 patrol cars turned off the boulevard and pulled into the lot, their lights flickering blue and red against the row of parked vehicles. Officers stepped out quickly, moving with a purpose that cut through the confusion and tension. The woman who had been hustling the children into the blue sedan stiffened as soon as she saw the police. She tried to keep calm, but when an officer approached and asked for her identification, her hands shook as she attempted an explanation. Anna watched closely. Emily pressed tightly to her side, while the officers began to separate the kids, making sure each one was safe and accounted for. 2 officers gently guided the other children away from the car, talking softly to keep them calm while gathering their small bags and belongings. As soon as things settled a little, Anna stepped forward with Mark at her side and told the police everything she could about Emily's disappearance, her months of searching, and finally recognizing both the woman and her daughter here today. Her words poured out in a rush. She added what she knew about Sister Margaret and the time that Emily and other children had apparently spent in the discipleship project. The officers listened intently, taking careful notes as Anna detailed her suspicions that the so-called outreach program was not what it claimed to be. It did not take long for the police to confirm that these children were under the care of Sister Margaret and her assistant Linda as part of this supposed discipleship initiative. With the evidence Anna provided and statements from a few witnesses, the officers decided to transport the children to the Family Services office downtown, making sure they would be safe while the situation was sorted out. The blue sedan was left behind, with crime scene tape quickly looped around it as the officers began their own investigation. For Anna, there was a bittersweet sense of relief as she watched the scene unfold. The doubt and guilt she had carried for so long began to lift, especially as it became clear that the focus of the investigation was shifting away from her family and on to the real culprits. The uncertainty she had endured for 2 years finally started to settle, and for once, the questions that haunted her now belonged to someone else. Sitting on one of the worn benches in the Family Services lobby, Anna cradled Emily close, careful not to overwhelm her, but unwilling to let her out of arm's reach. Mark hovered nearby, occasionally stepping outside for air, every time returning to check on them. The afternoon light filtered through tall windows, throwing the waiting area into a pale, almost peaceful glow. The buzz of the place went on. Phones ringing, workers moving paperwork, and other families waiting to be seen. But Anna's mind was stuck somewhere between relief and a wave of emotion she could not quite handle yet. Her phone vibrated in her lap, and she saw Samantha's name flash on the screen. Heart thumping, Anna answered quickly, trying to keep her voice steady. Samantha wasted no time with small talk. She dove straight in, her words clipped and tense as she relayed what she had managed to dig up. "Anna, you were right to be suspicious. That guy, Sister Margaret's so-called boss, Pastor Davis, turns out his real name is Raymond Davis, and he has never been approved by any church authority. His credentials are completely fake. He forged letters and documents to get into trusted places. He built his reputation from scratch just to win people over." Anna felt a cold anger start to settle in her bones as she listened. Samantha continued, "It gets worse. There are news clippings about him from years ago, manipulating people in church groups, stealing donations under false names, even getting close to kids during retreats. He has changed cities more than once. Everything about him is a lie." For a moment, Anna could not breathe. She squeezed Emily a little tighter, ordering herself not to fall apart in front of her daughter after all they had been through already. The guilt hit her hard. It churned with anger in her chest as she looked at Emily and remembered every visit, every trusting conversation with Pastor Davis, every piece of advice she had followed, thinking it would help her grieving daughter after the chaos at home. Anna realized, with a twist in her gut, that she and Mark had handed Emily over without thinking twice. She wanted to scream at herself for being so easily fooled, for trusting her instincts when they were so wrong. Anna's relief was now mixed with regret and fury. Even though she held Emily safely now, she knew that inside she would be carrying these feelings and the lessons learned for a long time. Not long after, Anna and Mark were called into a small office at the Family Services building. A counselor was there to help facilitate things, and after the formalities, Emily began to share her story with gentle encouragement. Anna listened in silence, squeezing Mark's hand while Emily described everything that had happened since she had been taken. Emily spoke about how, almost immediately after arriving at Pastor Davis's house, she had been told her parents were gone, that there had been a car accident, and she would not be able to see them again. The shock of that lie had left her numb and withdrawn at first. She even described a staged funeral, complete with somber music and unfamiliar adults gathered around, as if really mourning. "I was scared, and I missed you both so much," she whispered. "He made it seem like there was nothing left for me but his group." She described the strict, almost military routines: waking early every day, prayers at set hours, chores done in silence. Punishments were handed out for the smallest reason: speaking out of turn, failing to memorize verses, even peeking out the window at night. Other kids were kept there too, all handed the same stories and routines, all told in one way or another, that their families had abandoned them or could not come for them. Emily looked at Anna with tired, honest eyes. It was never about God or kindness. He just wanted to control us and keep us scared. Anna felt her chest tighten with every word, but could not look away. Mark sat rigid, jaw set, swallowing hard. As painful as Emily's words were, they finally had answers. The secrets that had haunted their nights, the worry that had eaten away at them for so long, at last had shape and detail. Emily's story was not only heartbreaking, it was proof. A map that traced the damage back to Davis and exposed how calculated and cruel the whole scheme had been. Hearing Emily's account, Anna and Mark realized they were not alone. There were other children, other parents who had suffered the same manipulation and loss. Now they could point to what had really happened, turning their pain into something that might help others, even bring justice. In that moment, they understood the difference between true faith and the kind of twisted control Davis had used. With the truth finally out, Anna felt a cautious hope rise up, a hope that healing might actually be possible, for their family and for others as well. The day after Emily's testimony, the Chicago police moved quickly. Officers arrived at Raymond Davis's apartment building before sunrise, steady and prepared. Linda, his assistant, was there too, coming downstairs with a bag of groceries, barely hiding her nerves as the officers blocked her path. It was a quiet arrest, no drawn-out drama, just firm, practiced movements as the police read them their rights and put them into separate cars. Anna and Mark heard about it on a call from the detective leading the case, who said the investigation had more than enough evidence now. Inside the apartment and at the storage unit Davis had rented on the south side, police found boxes filled with old children's clothing, fake birth certificates, and stacks of forms from different organizations. There were also diaries and folders of photographs, carefully labeled by date, of boys and girls who had disappeared from Chicago, Milwaukee, and even as far as Minneapolis. Each file seemed like a puzzle piece, showing just how many families these two people had hurt. For Anna, seeing proof that it had all really happened was chilling. But strangely, it brought a sense of relief too. No more wondering, no more doubting herself. The blame rested where it belonged. By midday, the Family Services Department was reaching out to dozens of families, cross-referencing the photographs and records. Anna and Mark, along with Emily, returned to the downtown office as news crews circled outside the building, reporters hoping for a statement. Inside, the mood was a mixture of hope and heartbreak. Some reunions happened quickly as parents recognized faces from years of missing posters, while others faced more uncertain outcomes, not knowing if calls would ever be answered. Anna and Mark sat together quietly, feeling grateful to have Emily with them, yet burdened with the sorrow that many others might not see their children come home. Anna realized that her journey was not only about bringing her own child back. She saw the need to support these other families, to help investigate and tell the truth about what had happened. She met parents who had almost given up, shared stories with them, and offered her shoulder without hesitation. That day, Anna understood that healing would be a long road. It was no longer just about rebuilding her own family, but about standing up for all those who had been hurt. Justice for her was no longer a private struggle. It became something larger, a way to give others that same chance for hope she and her family had finally found. The day after the arrests, the air in Anna and Mark's apartment was heavy, quieter than they were used to. Emily was upstairs, drawing in her room, occasionally wandering out into the hallway just to make sure Anna was still there. The news on TV talked about the case in somber voices, giving updates about Davis and Linda and flashing pictures of the rescued children. Mark muted the television, sensing Anna needed a break from it all, and for a while they simply sat together at the kitchen table, not speaking. Late that afternoon, there was a gentle knock on the door, a rare sound these days. When Anna opened it, she found Pastor Charles from the local church holding his hat in both hands, expression full of concern and humility. Pastor Charles had been a friend to the family before all of this, the kind of man who always made time to visit when someone in the neighborhood was struggling. Now, though, he looked lost for words. He started out quietly. "Anna, I cannot tell you how sorry I am. I trusted Davis. We all did. If I could take it back for you, for Emily, for any of the families, I would. I hope you know how much we all regret placing faith in someone who only meant harm." He paused, struggling a little, then offered a hesitant invitation. "The whole community wants to be there for you, not out of pity, but to celebrate that you, Mark, and Emily are together again. Would you be willing to come to the church this weekend? Say a prayer, share a meal, just let people show you they care." Anna took in his words, uneasy at first, but slowly letting herself feel the sincerity in Pastor Charles's voice. She realized she did not want to carry anger at those who had also been deceived. In that moment, she found herself able to forgive him, not in a way that excused mistakes, but in a way that made space for everyone's grief. and for healing. Anna accepted the invitation, sensing it was the first step in letting the wounds start to close, not only for herself, but also for others lost and shaken by the ordeal. Being able to sit with Pastor Charles and see his heavy regret helped Anna begin to trust again just a little. She understood now that faith in community, when it was honest and humble, could offer comfort and help mend what had been broken. It would take time, but with understanding and careful trust, it felt possible to move forward. That evening, with Emily finally home, the house felt different in a way Anna hadn't expected. For so long, every night had ended with a hollow quiet, the kind that made you notice the things that were missing. Now there was a new sort of silence, a calmness that came after the storm. Anna cooked a simple dinner, nothing fancy, just spaghetti and salad, but everyone ate without complaint. It was the first meal in years that felt complete, even in its simplicity. After dinner, they cleared the table together. Emily insisted on helping, standing beside Anna at the sink, sleeves rolled up and hands a little shaky as she washed dishes. Mark dried each plate and bowl, working quietly but occasionally glancing over at the two of them, with a look that said everything he felt. They did not talk much about what had happened. Instead, they focused on the task at hand, finding comfort in the small routines that had once gone missing from their lives. When bedtime came, Emily asked if she could sleep in their room just for that night. Anna hesitated only a second before spreading blankets out on the big old rug beside their bed. It was a tight fit, but nobody seemed to mind. Mark lay down on the floor next to Emily, Anna just behind, so their daughter was surrounded on all sides by the two people who had fought so hard to get her back. As she drifted off, Anna reached over and found Mark's hand. They squeezed each other's fingers tightly, grounding themselves even as exhaustion washed over them. Mark turned to Anna quietly and said, "I would never have believed in any of this if you hadn't kept pushing. You followed your gut when logic said to give up. I never understood before. Sometimes a mother's intuition is what we need." Anna swallowed a lump in her throat and squeezed his hand again, understanding that this was his way of saying thank you and sorry, all at once. No one really knew how many nightmares might come or how long the healing would take. But that night, for the first time in years, they all slept right through until dawn, with Emily's peaceful breathing filling the room. It was not a perfect ending, but it was real, and it was enough for them to believe they could build something new together. Days slowly blended into each other after Emily came home, and soon the news about what had happened in Chicago spread far beyond their own family. Friends called, some just to check in, and others wanting to understand how something so terrible could happen so close to home. Neighbors left homemade casseroles and cards on their porch, small gestures that left Anna feeling both seen and overwhelmed. Reporters reached out for interviews, but Anna and Mark kept to themselves, answering only the messages from other parents whose children were still missing or who had been touched by the same network of deceit. As the story reached other families, a sense of responsibility settled on Anna. She never set out to become a voice for anyone else. Her only goal had been to get her daughter back. But she realized, as more strangers found comfort and hope in her journey, that telling the truth was a way to break down the wall of silence that people like Davis had built around their crimes for so long. Anna found herself meeting with support groups, sitting in back rooms at the church and listening to stories that echoed her own. Every time she offered a word of encouragement, she saw that Emily's struggle and their family's hard-won reunion gave others the courage to keep searching for their own missing pieces. Emily, too, sensed the change, though she was still struggling to trust new faces, and loud noises made her flinch. She started spending time with a counselor provided by the city. She drew pictures and wrote short stories, little by little reclaiming her voice. At school, Anna explained things, to the teachers asking for patience as Emily adjusted. The community surprised them with their warmth. No one judged, no one whispered. Instead, people rallied around them, bridging the gap between what had been lost and what could still be saved. Faith did not return as it once was. For Anna and Mark, it was no longer blind or untested. Now, it was a steady resolve, a belief in action, and the importance of asking hard questions, of watching out for one another. Their love for Emily was unchanged, maybe even stronger, because it had been threatened and restored. The family's story was no longer just about survival, but about showing that stubborn hope and a mother's fierce love could unravel even the most carefully hidden lies. In that way, Chicago's pain was remade into the promise of something better, not just for themselves, but for everyone determined to push back against despair.